What do you make of the Federal Court of Appeal upholding the ruling that your martial law was illegal?
I told you he's mean. I know, baby.
Justin Trudeau being dropped by Katy Perry. That is some funny stuff. Mark Carney thought he was a genius at the World Economic Forum, saying that he wants to form ties with middle powers so he could team up against major powers. The thing is, 3 days earlier, he formed economic ties with China, a new relationship, which means the whole world knows that he was referring to the United States. In today's report, we're gonna cover the fallout of that decision. Let's get into this report. Now that everybody's back home from the World Economic Forum, we have Liberal Minister Evan Solomon that says that the trip was such a massive success. Are you? You can't make any of this stuff up. If you call a complete destruction of our relationship with the United States a massive success, let's see Evan Solomon.
We are very excited that we're working together to build our plan on a safe, sovereign country. You saw the Prime Minister coming back from his remarkable trip in China, securing $7 billion of trade, really helping some of our key sectors. Obviously, talking about Canada's role in the world and the role that middle powers have and the control that we have over the things that we can control and bringing jobs at home here. And what we're really focused on today is building a safe, sovereign country, good jobs for Canadians, investing in those key sectors, not just the sectors of today, but obviously building a safe, sovereign, and secure, strong economy tomorrow.
$7 billion with China. I don't know if he knows, but our relationship with the United States has $1 trillion in back and forth trade every year. So $7 billion is like picking up a penny and thinking you are all of a sudden rich. Then we have Donald Trump describe his Board of Peace as the most prestigious board in the world. And you would expect all of the top world leaders to be part of this wonderful pact. Let's take a look at what Donald Trump has to say about his new Board of Peace.
Everybody wants to be on it. But yeah, I have some controversial people on it, but these are people that get the job done. These are people that have tremendous influence. And if I put all babies on the board, there wouldn't be very much. So he was invited. He's accepted. Many people have accepted. I don't know of anybody that hasn't accepted. But it's going to be great. I think the Board of Peace will be the most prestigious board ever, and it's going to get a lot of work done that the United Nations should have done. And we'll work with the United Nations, but the Board of Peace is going to be special. We're going to have peace. It started off with Gaza, the Middle East. We've got peace in the Middle East, tremendous peace in the Middle East. Nobody thought that was possible. And that happened by taking out the Iran nuclear threat. Without that, it could have never happened. But the board is going to be, I think, really fantastic. And I think it'll be the most prestigious board of any board ever in world history. Thank you very much.
Everybody's invited to the board, except for Mark Carney. Donald Trump posted, "Dear Prime Minister Carney, please let this letter serve to represent that the Board of Peace is withdrawing its invitation to you regarding Canada joining what will be the most prestigious board of all leaders ever assembled at any time. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald Trump." And you already have all of the elbows up fans across the country cheering that we just saved $1 billion, because that is the entry fee to join this board. And Mark Carney at the World Economic Forum actually said, if you're not on the table, you are on the menu.
Argue the middle powers must act together, because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu.
And guess what? I guess we're now on the menu. Oh, jeez. This is insane. Scott Bessent, which is the United States Secretary of Treasury, has just destroyed Mark Carney.
I think Prime Minister Carney should say thank you rather than giving, this value signaling speech. I don't know. It strikes me that Mark Carney has gone back to his old days. He was the UN climate czar. He's tried to morph his position. He's saying, oh, Canada's going to become an energy powerhouse. Which of those does not make sense?
He also said that, quote, the middle powers must act together because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. I think some people are a bit surprised at the relationship between the US and Canada and some of Carney's remarks. This is coming from someone who's been historically one of our closest allies. Do you worry at all about the consequences of that relationship deteriorating, like, for example, pushing Canada to develop a closer relationship with China?
Well, again, his trip to China was scheduled long before any of this, and Canada should trade with China. Canada should trade with China. President Trump said that. So Prime Minister Carney should do what's best for Canada. In the context of the United States, I'll point out the Canadian economy is smaller than the economy of Texas.
The Canadian economy is smaller than the size of Texas. With the complete collapse of our relationship with the United States, you would expect the media-friendly, the bought and paid for CBC $1.4 billion would be able to ask Mark Carney questions. Donald Trump has already talked to media countless times since coming back from the WEF. Mark Carney refuses to take questions.
Last night, as the Prime Minister left the cabinet retreat, reporters waited to, again, try and ask him questions. Many of us shouted questions about whether or not he had spoken to U.S. President Donald Trump since Davos. Of course, this was all before the invite had been rescinded. The Prime Minister did not take questions, but commented something to the effect that questions about Donald Trump and whether they had spoken were boring and that we should try and ask different questions. So we have not heard from the Prime Minister on our questions since last night or this morning as he made his way in. We'll be looking to get answers today, but at this point, he's not expected to take questions from the media. At least that's not part of his schedule.
Holy crap, we went from who cares? Who cares about the United States to the United States is now seen as boring. Are you kidding me? $1 trillion worth of trade back and forth every single year. 75% of all our trade goes down to the United States. 20% of our GDP is tied to U.S. trade. That is not boring, in my opinion. Hold on to your beverage, because this next segment here is going to be one of those moments where your mouth opens and you just stare blankly at the screen. We just formed a new relationship with China where we're going to open up our economies to each other. So if we've already done this, we should expect that we have details on how we're going to protect our country and our economy from China. Check out this response.
I listened to Minister Champagne just a moment ago talk about eyes wide open. I heard the Prime Minister on multiple occasions say that there will be guardrails to this relationship as we try to amplify trade with China. I never heard anyone specify what they are. Minister, what are the guardrails?
Well, if you look at China, our second largest trading partner, it's very important that we continue to engage with China. Very successful trip. We've been working with them, to negotiate agriculture access. In fact, over $7 billion of agriculture access for canola, for seafood, for beef. In fact, our very first shipment of beef is already out there now. Canola's out there as well. And so it's very important that we continue to open up access for our producers, for our workers, but also about EVs. That's very important as well. Especially being an MP in Ontario, speaking to workers. Stellantis is in my riding, 3,000 people laid off. Speaking to those workers, they asked me, they just say, we want to build cars. We don't care who we build them for. We just want to build cars. And so this is very important in terms of attracting joint venture opportunities between Chinese and Canadian companies to help build those cars in Canada.
And I appreciate...
What? What about the security agreements? What about making sure that we're safe What about that? He didn't answer the question.
Mr. The economic case, right, as you lay it out for more trade with China. But my question with respect was about the guardrails that your government is planning to put in place. I know our audience and you will be familiar with the fact that in April, the Prime Minister, in response to a question in the election debate about what is the greatest security threat facing Canada, his answer was China. So the question around guardrails pertains to that. Like, what guardrails is your government going to put in place to help navigate this relationship so that we do not suffer as a result of, more trade with China?
You can't get any more clear than that. Let's see if he responds.
So part of the agreements that we signed on the ground in China was law enforcement collaboration, cooperation with each other.
What? That is so dangerous. What are we doing cooperations between our law enforcement? That does not give me any sort of comfort.
To keep our community safe. And so I think that's very important for those watching so they understand, what we're doing there. We're making sure there's partnerships on energy, on agriculture, on consumer goods. But also, of course, public safety and law enforcement is very, very important. We want to make sure that our citizens' safety is never compromised. And so, going in with eyes wide open, as you said, is very important to our government. But, as the Prime Minister said in Davos, we need to see the world for what it is, not what we wish it to be. And so we need to approach it very pragmatically and constructively, and that's exactly what our government is doing.
We have zero guardrails. We're going in blindfolded with a stick, and hopefully we don't get smashed by a falling tree. On top of that, we're going to be giving some of our top secret RCMP documents and sharing security details with China. That is the opposite of guardrails. It's hard to believe that Mark Carney said that the United States is boring and he doesn't care to talk to them. Who cares? But here is actual evidence of Mark Carney saying that the United States is boring.
Okay, what else are you going to do for affordability for Canadians? How are you going to execute? What about Ludnick's comments? What about Ludnick's comments?
We're going to have to hear that again because it's actually unbelievable.
Okay, what else are you going to do for affordability?
This is Canada's Prime Minister. He was elected as the only person that can negotiate a win with Donald Trump. And now we went from who cares to the United States is boring and kicked out of the Board of Peace. This is a massive falling out between Canada and the United States. Mark Carney had no idea that Donald Trump would boot him, reject him, throw him out of the Board of Peace. Check this out.
And reporters tried to ask the Prime Minister for his reaction to the fact that he's been disinvited, but he did not stop to speak to reporters either. This news that he was disinvited did come quite late yesterday after this first day of the Cabinet Planning Forum had wrapped up. And the Prime Minister was actually out to dinner with his ministers and secretaries of state when that happened. I will say, though, that reporters did try to speak to Carney just before he left the Citadel here in Quebec City, where this planning forum is taking place. A question was put to him at that time about Trump, and he said something to the effect that he didn't like that question. Come up with a better question is actually what he said. And perhaps that gives you a sense of how he's feeling. It's not clear if he got a heads up that Trump was going to disinvite him and post this on Truth Social. That's still a question that remains out there.
He wants a better question? That's the only question that matters if you're Canadian. What is happening with our relationship with the United States? You can't make any of this stuff up, Canada. And as RPN says here, I don't like that question. Can you come up with a better question? Sounds like he gets to pick which questions he wants to answer, doesn't it?
I told you he's mean. I know, baby.
My post here that I just showed you was published 6 hours ago, and it currently has 151,000 views. It is exploding across the country because Canadians cannot believe what they're seeing. And you're not going to believe what I'm going to show you next. With the internet exploding about the fallout between the United States and Canada, of course, this is a perfect day for this next segment. Evan Solomon 2 weeks ago, wrote this on his Twitter X post saying, contrary to media reports, Canada is not considering a ban of X. With the fallout of the United States, this is a perfect opportunity for the Carney Liberals to come out and say they have officially launched an investigation against Elon Musk and X.
I will also note that the Privacy Commissioner has started an investigation into X. And again, there was already an investigation before, but he's added an investigation into the use of deepfakes. I also note that X then changed their policy around what you can do with this horrific tool about notification and what they're doing. So I note that there's been changes there, but we are also having a suite of regulation to make sure Canadians, children, citizens, consumers are protected.
Wow. He went from X is safe in Canada, free speech is safe, to now they have officially launched a formal investigation. And as Andrew McKenzie here says on X, many Canadians are already waving the white flag. We give up. Or as Danielle says, not all Canadians are against it. And while all of this is happening, something is picking up steam in Canada.
A citizen-led petition calling for Alberta to seek independence from Canada is gaining momentum across the province.
Alberta needs to be strong and free from the shackles of the Liberal government. We are tired. We don't matter in this relationship, and it has to stop. I think we've had enough.
The Stay Free Alberta campaign is collecting signatures for the chance to vote on the question. Do you agree that the province of Alberta should cease to be a part of Canada to become an independent state? That's the question that they're hoping for. The push comes as new polling suggests support for Alberta sovereignty is on the rise.
Now that our relationship with the United States is officially over, for real this time, because Mark Carney said it was over during the election campaign, but today we have woken up to the collapse of our relationship. The Alberta independence movement, the match has been lit, the fuse is burning, and things are about to go boom. That's it for today's report. Things are rapidly deteriorating in Canada. If you are not following me on my Twitter X account, this is a good opportunity to do so, because I will be covering what's going on in this country live, keeping all of you up to date with what's happening. I'll see you on the next report.
I told you he's mean. I know, baby.